It's a tradition as beloved as holiday trees illuminating the city. A Christmas music bed under the din of shoppers in the rush to count down our vices until a new year offers a reset button. That'll be the Boston Pops Holiday Concert, which kicked off the season last week at Symphony Hall. Maestro Keith Lockhart led a fun-filled evening with sing-alongs, holiday favorites. There was a visit from Santa, a rousing solo performance by the great Justin Hopkins. But the biggest crowd pleasers were two local luminaries reading a memorable rendition of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below.
When what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature sleigh and a tiny reindeer. Boy, they are good. That would be Marjorie Egan and yours truly, of course. And yesterday, the other star of the evening, that'd be Keith Lockhart. He joined me as well. Keith, it's good to see you.
Hi, Jim. It's great to be here. You were
Anyone
great.
ever done, how great were we? How, on the Pantheon, hundreds of people have done this. How great were we?
Indescribably great.
Oh, that's what I was looking for. How long is this? By the way, it was huge, huge. I'm not a fun guy, I should say. It was huge fun. The concert, the doing, the whole thing. How long has this tradition been going on?
Really, sooner than it started in the 80s as a regular feature of Boston Pops. We didn't used to have a season then. And in the 80s it started, so I was in a little more than 10 years into it, and I've done it 21 years now. And it has become, the great thing is it's become a huge holiday tradition to the point that I have people who came as kids in my first years bringing their kids to the show.
I love it. And by the way, I was surrounded by people, many of whom had been there before. How do you keep it fresh, though? I mean, what do you do both for the audience, the returnees, the recidivists, let's call them, and for you? How do you keep it fresh? What do you do?
Well, for the audience, I mean, it's a balancing act because they don't want an entirely new product. That's not what tradition's about. Tradition's about coming back to something and going, wow, I know what this is. I recognize this when the whole world seems so unrecognizable so much of the time. But that having been said, you obviously just can't keep repeating the same one over and over again. So we tweak it every year. We bring new stories in. We bring new arrangements in. We have such a vast library now that we can rotate material through and not touch something more than once every 7 or 8 years.
Right before the interview, was it called The Christmas Story? Is that what it's called? Can you describe this? I know it's hard in words. Describe what that 15 minutes is like. It is magical.
Well, thank you. We do a lot of these story type moments in the Pops, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, The Polar Express, etc. And I always wanted to do that with the original Christmas story, the story that the themes bounce off of many of the other stories that are told during the season. And we use the text from the Gospels, from the King James Version, and the music underneath it is all beloved carols that people have known for years, a lot of which, incidentally, don't get played that often at Holiday Pops. And a narrator does the gospel and leads the singing, and that is, of course, Justin, whom you mentioned before. It's a stunning voice, a stunning presence.
I'll be so blue thinking about you.
And you also, the backdrop of that, what's the name of the guy who did all the beautiful...
Tommy DePaula.
Oh my God, it is, I mean, really, this is... I was shocked how much I loved it. I hope you take that in the right way. The whole thing was unbelievable. You know, but what was made difficult, I have to give you credit for this. You had to perform on the night of the day that we all learned about the deaths, the killings in San Bernardino. You opened, I thought, with a beautiful message to people. And it was pretty clear to me you didn't want to mention things specifically. There were a lot of kids in the room and that sort of thing. What did you say, and how did you decide what you would say to open that program?
Well, it's funny. One of the hardest parts of the job is finding how to contextualize the concert, what to say, how to bookend things, and that sort of thing. And I usually don't think about it until the last minute, which was good in this case because this was dumped on the plate. Just you know, we just knew about San Bernardino at that point. And what I said in essence was that the holidays are there not just because we celebrate them, but because we need to celebrate. And in a time that seems to have, just piling on top of each other, more occasions to mourn, to have one chance to come together and so say, no, that's not who we are, there is something better than this, is the reason we come back to the holidays every year with more and more fervency, I may add.
It was perfectly said. Yeah, I assume, you know, I'm a huge believer, even though I'm not lucky enough to have the skills that you do and your orchestra does. Music is a healing thing. I mean, the last couple of days, U2 performed with the group Eagles of Death Metal. They did Patti Smith's People Have the Power in Paris, obviously, to go back to the scene of the horror there. there is a healing thing that's almost indescribable, isn't it?
There is an emotional connectivity in music. There is something that touches us at a real core level that, regardless of creed, background, language barriers, all that stuff gets transcended. And that is one of the things that makes musicians feel so lucky to be musicians.
Can we ruin this discussion for 1 second? What did you think of what Trump had to say the other day?
I just keep thinking, eventually I think that it's a nightmare we'll wake up from. And I since I'm an optimistic kind of guy, I hope that that's the case.
Can you tell quickly, you've met him once. We
have.
asked you this already. Describe your interaction with Mr. Trump, please.
I met him at an anniversary party of a prominent Bostonian. We were both invited, and I was brought over by the host to his great delight to meet Trump. And to say that he looked straight through me is probably he gave less regard than that. It was as if I didn't exist. And I think there was it struck me as somebody who was almost, so into themselves that they did not notice the word around them.
I'd wear that as a badge of honor.
I have something to say about everything, and I'm stumped.
We started this with talking about the great tradition of the holiday pops. How about you? The kid, Keith Lockhart, the father, the husband. Are there holiday traditions that matter a lot to you that you continue?
Christmas was a very important time in my house when I was growing up, and it was a time of family. We all lived pretty far flung. It was a time to get back together. There was always a midnight service on Christmas Eve, and as I've said before, it seems like the snow was always falling when we came back out to go to the car. And with my own now 3 and 5 and 12-year-old sons, it's a family time that I feel a little frustrated by because I'm with them very little in the month of December. I mean, I don't get to put them to bed. Last night we went and got the tree because we had a night off.
Real versus or fake? This is the test.
Absolutely real.
No question.
No question.
Fine. Well, you should hear from me. Not only was it a thrill to do "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and thanks for the invite. It was I hate people who say this, but I mean a magical evening.
That's
it was
wonderful.
Fabulous.
Well, come back and do it again.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
It's a deal.